All right, so this was an idea I had set up. I set it up a while ago because I thought we'd just, talk about winter a bit since it's such a huge part of the Canadian life. But then we've had this extremely strange winter where it snowed and then all the snow melted at least 3 times, maybe 4. It was weird. Like I'd go on a nice winter wonderland walk and then the next day it'd be green. But that was kind of nice too because it kept the snow from getting gross. It was just beautiful movie snow over and over. But we finally hit the point where it really is winter. We're in it's exactly mid-January, January 15th as we record this. And we had, last week, there was a day that was minus 22, and then the next day was minus 20 Celsius, which Fahrenheit, it's like minus 8, minus 7, minus 4. Today's not as bad, it's only minus 18, but it's much worse because it's windy.
But it followed up a day yesterday that was beautiful. It was it was 0, or maybe 1 or 2 degrees.
Yeah, it was.
But it was very mild, and it was lovely yesterday. And today I'm sitting here with my hands tucked under my armpits trying to warm them up, even though we're in a room that's got heat on it.
Yeah, yesterday I was hiking through the woods. I was telling you how I got kind of lost. I literally had to stop at one point because I was wearing a t-shirt and a thermal shirt, and I had my coat open, and I had to stop and take off my coat and take off the thermal shirt and just stand there in a t-shirt for a few minutes to cool down. That's what yesterday was. And then, today, minus 18, windy. But with the wind, too, I think this is the worst day we've had yet.
And when you're living in these old houses here like this, these are the days that remind you that they've got very poor insulation in them. The windows are rattling with the wind, and it's friggin' cold.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. So that reminded me of this thing I set up at the start of the winter. It's like, well, today's a good day. Where it's just this video that it's got like 3 million views on YouTube. This thing blew up. Where this guy went to Yakutsk. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but it's like a city near Siberia. That just how it's situated, it's worse than some parts of Antarctica. It's so fucking cold. So we're at minus 20. It hits minus 50. And they don't cancel school till it hits minus 50 because it could go to it has gone to like minus 70. Like we're talking about like being on the moon at this point, like just insane shit. So the same way when we did the video about the Beatles and I split it up into pieces, I did that with this. So we'll just, it's pretty short anyway, but we'll just watch like a few minutes at a time.
So we'll watch it and then we'll feel quite warm here.
Yeah. So I don't know specifically.
Everything's relative. We'll think how wonderful it is today. It's not cold at all.
Just an excuse to talk about cold because that's like one thing I always notice. Like, when people who write movies and TV and video games or whatever are not from the north because they don't understand how cold works. Like they just write weird stuff. Like, the example I always think of, there's this game called Until Dawn. It's set in Canada, but it's made by a southern United States guy. And it's like a murder mystery in the frozen, in a ski lodge. But like somebody outside gets like pushed into a stream and gets their jeans soaked. And they're just like, hey, what are you doing? Ha ha ha. And the thing just keeps going. And it's like, no, we've just hit hypothermia emergency zone. You got to get inside right now. You got to take those jeans off.
Yeah, those jeans will be just like solid ice.
Yeah.
Even like today, my gloves that were in my car, the window must have been open a little bit. I went to put the gloves on. They were frozen together in a little frozen ball. And they were in my car. They're not outdoors. They're in my car.
Yeah, I noticed the other day, the minus 22 day, that I pulled out my bottle of water from my book bag and then awkwardly took the cap off with my big mitts on. And then as I was drinking it, I spilled a little bit on my collar. And next time I looked down, there was frozen ice drops just from that. And it's like, yeah, this place is nuts. So we'll just watch through this and see what we have to say. If nothing else, even if we don't have any specific big smart thoughts about winters, just again, we'll just, at least maybe it'll make this seem a little less brutal. But then I forgot. I was like, this seems like a lot of parts. Why is this so many parts? And I forgot that I set this, when I set this up, I did the 2 sides. So the guy who went to the frozen city, I don't know who he is specifically, just some YouTuber who I hadn't seen before. But it made me think of the other guy, Tokyo Lens, the guy who did the video about the guy who lives in the mountains and runs the little hostel in the coffee place.
The former school place.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So he did a video about this island in Japan that has an active volcano. And people, not a lot of people live there anymore, but some people still live there. And I thought like, oh, let's throw that in as the other side. It's like so cold that, everything's insane. And then the other side, it's so hot that these people have to worry about ash raining from the sky, and they don't leave. They still live there. So I thought we'd do those two back to back and just...
Heaven and hell.
Yeah. Oh, I guess, what are these videos called? Just so if anybody else wants to watch them, I didn't write that down. All right. Holy shit. Did I say 3 million views? 38 million views this video has. That's a lot of fucking views. So it's called Visiting the Coldest City in the World.
Minus 71 degrees Celsius. Holy.
Which is minus 96 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my God. Can't imagine. We get 20 below Celsius and we're like, oh my God, it's just unbearable.
And the YouTube channel is called Discover with Ruhi Sennett.
Siri, what is the temperature?
It's minus 47 degrees outside.
Air temperature in Antarctica is negative 14.8 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 20 degrees Celsius. Here it is negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 47 degrees. Our lungs are not used to it, that's why we're coughing. The weather here is very cold and dry. There's a large population living, approximately 300,000 inhabitants. Yakutsk is the capital of Sakha Republic, an autonomous region that is allied with Russia, 280 miles away from the North Pole. Since this place is the most northeastern point of Siberia, it is very much isolated from the rest of the world. The lowest air temperature ever measured in this region is negative 96.16 degrees Fahrenheit. It is as if it belongs to another planet. A banana left outside can turn into a hammer in minutes. People cannot wear metal frame glasses here because the metal could stick to their skin. And if they wanted to take off their glasses, their flesh might be teared out.
So that's just a little kickoff, but man, yeah, like I never thought about how you can't wear metal glasses.
I never thought about that either. Now, they're showing a lot of that stuff on the Weather Channel lately.
Right.
They're showing how to enjoy winter in Canada, and they'll throw water up in the air like that and take a towel and turn it into a toboggan and toboggan down a hill, and they showed a shirt and they threw it like a frisbee.
But I mean, can you really... I don't think you can do that stuff here.
Well, you can probably do it in the Midwest, and if you're far enough north, you can probably do it. But you probably can't do it all winter. You can probably only do it on certain days when it's really, really cold.
Right.
Because our west has very dry. And notice he said the temperature was a certain degree, what he said, 58 Celsius, minus 58 Celsius, and very dry. And see, that's the difference between our weather, which is damp, because we're so close to the ocean and our temperatures fluctuate so much. But out west, in the north, oftentimes they'll, like the cold will set in, and it's very, very dry cold.
Right.
And you could probably do it there. But whether you could do it continually, I don't know. This place looks like once that cold sets in, that's it. You're in there probably for 6 weeks and nothing fluctuates. And you can probably go at any day of the night or day and
Yeah, it wouldn't be like that idea.
freeze your bananas and freeze your meat to a pole. And
Yeah, that idea of taking making a toboggan out of a wet towel or whatever. Like, yeah, that's some kind of weird novelty that you might be able to pull off here. But yeah, you could just do that there. Although it's funny when they showed on the Earth, like here's the whole map of the Earth and here's where this place is. And it's, like not that much further north than us. It's like when you see that frozen part.
And it's on that longitude line of Moscow.
Yeah.
And yet it seems to be so much colder. But again, if you're in a plain area, like you would be like our Midwest, like our western prairies, it's definitely colder out there than it is here. And you hear those stories about them sending prisoners off to Siberia and the people freezing to death out there. And
well, I believe that's how this place got started, because 300,000 people is a pretty big population. But yeah, it's like they didn't just send people to Siberia to die. They sent them there to live, and then here we are. Now you're stuck there.
And I've seen pictures of Siberia from World War II when World War II, a lot of the camps that were out there were going on, and the Soviets were putting people out there. And it looked cold. You'd see buildings like encased in ice. where that's something we don't see around here that much.
At least this is like a real city. Like our city we're in now is like, what, 60,000 people? So 300,000, it's like significantly bigger. What really sounds like a downer is I've watched videos of people that do the Trans-Siberian Railroad, and there's all kinds of little villages that aren't as far north, but they're still terrible, but also no one lives there. So like they said, like whenever the train would stop at these places, people would come out and sell their little homemade, neat knickknacks and stuff, but they never saw a person smile ever. Everyone was just like, ugh. So
Yeah, that was pretty friggin' miserable.
Yeah. So at least if you have to live in the north, at least that place is a real city. All right, so this is about the Siberia thing we were talking about and just how cars work there.
As you can see, these are natural gas pipes, and they have to be laid above the ground because the underground is frozen with ice. There is actually a 100-foot thick mass of ice under the city. During the Soviet era, people who contradicted Stalin's ideas were exiled to Sakha Republic region. They were politicians, businessmen, etc. As a matter of fact, some of these people who live in Yakutsk right now are their grandchildren. So this place used to be land of exile. Today there is a city life going on. But we could call this life an ice hell. It pushes the limits of human nature. No matter how much we bundle up, nothing is enough to keep our bodies warm. If you have a car here, you have a big problem. Winter lasts for 6 to 7 months here, and in that time, you can never drive your car. If you insist on driving it, you can never stop your vehicle's engine. For example, the car with a running engine you can see here is empty. There is nobody inside. There are hundreds of cars like this. The reason why the engine is running, if it stops, it can be completely covered with ice and the engine oil will freeze. As you can see, the owner of this vehicle must have decided not to run his or her car for a while just after 20 minutes of the engine being off. It is common to give up hope. Another frozen car here, waiting to be reused next summer. This car is running, right? Let's see if there's anybody inside. Yeah, nobody. Can you imagine what a huge base of energy this actually is? Fortunately, Russia is a country that is quite rich in oil and natural gas resources. Even the exhaust smoke freezes. That's how cold it is. There are special covers for protection. Sometimes this is not enough too. People who can afford it keep their vehicles in a heated garage. Because these vehicles are constantly running, there is a constant layer of exhaust smoke over the city. Range of visibility is often below 200 feet due to the smog.
So that's what I thought was interesting about this video is because it does remind me a lot of here on our worst days, but so much worse. Like that, what do you say, like 100 feet of permafrost? Like it just never goes away? That's fucking crazy. And yeah, the thing with never turning off your car. Like,
I wondered why it looked so smoggy there. All the pictures that we were looking at are dull, as if there's a snowstorm going on the entire time. But that's the smog from these vehicles because they never get turned off.
yeah, that's if there's anything they need to try to work on with the infrastructure of that city, because they're saying like how at least if you put your car in a heated garage, that's not cheap, but that's so much better than leaving your car running for 7 months. That's fucking nuts.
You think all these cars, somebody would steal them, but then why would you?
Yeah, like
Where the heck you gonna go with the darn thing? And then you can't, if you turn it off.
Yeah, I feel like if you tried to leave the city, you're just gonna die, right? Like, yeah, literally where are you gonna go? And if that city's 300,000 people, any other city you would make it to would be smaller and worse.
That was reminiscent of a day if we were having a snowstorm. That's what that looked like.
Yeah.
But apparently it's like that all the time. Like everything is covered in ice and snow, and it doesn't look like freshly fallen snow. Because here, after we have our freshly fallen snow, well, we clean off all our cars and we clean up all our driveways, and we just don't have big piles of snow laying around except maybe on our roofs. But there, everything is coated in snow that looks pretty friggin' solid.
And yeah, that's what I thought was interesting about this video is it really does cover the two sides. There's like the nature side where you don't think about how fast things can freeze and that, noodles will just become a handle or bananas turn into a hammer or whatever. But then the human side too, like I feel like, I don't know, that's just one of those ideas I would never think of. Say I'm writing a story and I'm trying to imagine what it's like to live in one of these cities. It's pretty logical, to not turn off your car once you know that's a thing, but I just wouldn't, it would never occur to me because that seems like the dumbest thing you could ever do.
Except if you turn off your car, you can't turn it on again. Look at all those cars that were just parked.
Yeah, like you just
For months.
You just have no choice. That's what you got to do. Yeah, so that's why I thought this would be an interesting little video to watch because there's stuff like that it's like.
And they mentioned the Gulag there, which was those were the camps, the Soviet camps in the early 50s, where after World War II they sent all their dissidents off to the Gulag archipelago.
Yeah, I guess it's better than, just being disappeared and just being killed or something. But yeah, pretty good way to get rid of your political enemies, right? Like, there you go live here now,
Yeah,
dickhead.
go send them out there and survive out in that wilderness. Ugh.
Oh, and now speaking of, I was saying about, like people that don't understand how cold works, like frostbite. Because, like anyone who didn't get frostbite as a kid should not be writing stories set in Canada, if you ask me.
The houses here have completely different architecture. The reason why the buildings are built on pillars is that the ground is covered with ice and there is a possibility of ice shift. Old houses start to lean over after a decade or so because the amount of ice either increases or decreases. It feels like pins and needles. The worst thing that could happen is to get frostbite. I just took off my gloves for just a minute for filming. Now it hurts terribly. My eyelashes are frozen too. I'm trying to break the ice. Move. If you would stay outside for more than 15 minutes, you would experience problems such as skin burns and difficulty in breathing. Chill that starts with a needle prick-like pain, frostbite followed by sensation loss. And then it could result in death. She took off her gloves for just 5 minutes to film me. Her fingertips instantly turned white. Our microphone is giving a red warning. It is not working properly. The camera is also not working as it should. Our phones don't work as well. Her battery was about 10% a couple of minutes ago, and then it suddenly died, whereas it was actually full. What you see behind me is a cemetery. The thickness of the ice under my shoes is about 100 foot. And this ice mass under the city does not melt even in the summer. So, how do people bury the dead? They gather pieces of coal and burn them for 2 to 3 days. Once the coal is burned, the blocks of ice thaw, and it can be easily removed using shovels. Finally, the area can be excavated to a depth of 6 to 7 feet. The body of a person who died 100 or 200 years ago can be found very robust even today.
So yeah, like that's a great example of how we don't have it this bad at all. Like stuff like, how do you bury people when you've got ice everywhere? You just can't, and then if you do, it's better not to. It's better to cremate people because that body just stays frozen for future archaeologists to find.
And presumably they put them in vaults and things like we do until summer. But even then, they've got to dig through ice to bury that body, whereas, we have Earth by that time.
It feels like a science fiction story or something. Or I remember there was an issue of that comic, The Sandman, that was about this race of people that lived on the mountains. So since they were on the mountains, they couldn't bury bodies. So their cemetery ritual was to leave bodies out for vultures to eat because it's the only way to get rid of the bodies. And just like you're in such a bizarre environment that you just can't even do the rituals everyone else does. You have to think of something else. And that poor girl they showed, who's one of their film crew or whatever, just took off her gloves for 5 minutes just so they could show the pain and the crying of frostbite. But that's what it is. It's like, it feels like burning. I got it on my ear when I was a kid a couple of times. And it's fucking horrible. And they're from Argentina or whatever. They must be like, what the fuck? Oh, now the fish market. Now there's a plus. The outdoor fish markets and stuff are just a freezer. The whole world's a freezer, so that's a bonus.
In this land where people cannot engage in agriculture or farming, people eat fish. One of the most important features of this market is that they display the fish in public stalls rather than in refrigerators. Outside is much colder than any refrigerator. A piece of meat left outside won't spoil for months. There are also frozen rabbits here. They are consumed a lot, including with the ducks. Horse meat is also very common. There are only such dogs here. Unfortunately, cats cannot survive. Only mammals with a really thick fur. There are 2 layers of glass inside the cars. So when the air conditioner warms the interior, it doesn't lose its temperature immediately. The scariest thing about being on the road is that people whose cars break down have a risk of dying if they cannot fix it within 30 minutes. Otherwise, engine oil under the hood freezes in minutes. If people get stranded in these rural areas with no phone signal, they have no choice but to freeze to death within a couple of hours. That's why every driver carries a toolbox in his or her car.
So that's one thing I liked about this too, is it brought back things I hadn't thought of in years. They showed that lady at the who worked in the fish market, and just, you know, she's outside all day, so she's got millions of layers. But boot liners, like when I was a kid, everybody had those boot liners in your boots, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And now, I don't know if it's because of temperature change or not, but like oftentimes you can go the whole winter as long as you're not walking too far just with your sneakers on.
Yeah, I think it does seem like the winters aren't as bad, and I think too, just as an adult, you're more like, you know, you're only outside for a reason, where when you're a kid, you're just outside for no reason all day, so it makes more sense that we had snow pants and boot liners and all this stuff, you know, that...
But those people were so clothed up, heavy clothes and great big hats and face covers, and we very rarely dress like to that extreme.
Yeah, I mean, today, because you offered to drive me home, but I'm going to walk, I've got all my stuff. I've got all my layers. I'm like, I'll be fine. I got my neck warmer and my big face mask and all my stuff. I'm wearing long underwear, sweatpants, and jeans. Like, I got all these layers, so I'll be fine. But again, it's only minus 18. It's not minus 50. And yeah, again, with the minus 50 thing, just again, stuff I would never know. I would never even guess. That like they have dogs, but cats can't make it. Cats can't live there.
And even certain dogs can't make it.
Yeah.
And they showed that dog who looked like an outdoorsy type dog, but he's there with his poor little paw raised up because obviously that foot is cold and he can't keep it on the snow.
And that terror of your car breaking down when you're outside of town, and they're saying like, yeah, you got to get out there and fix it, because it's the same thing with those cars they leave on all winter. Within 20-30 minutes, they're not turning back on again. So if that happens to you and your cell phone doesn't work because it's too cold, and your car doesn't work because it's too cold, and now you're dead.
Yeah. And your batteries in those things are just drained in no time. And the people that they showed at the fish market, they almost looked roly-poly. They had so many clothes on, and not little jackets that only go to your waist or whatever, big jackets that go almost to your knee. Boot liners. I remember when people were kids, it was just your kids in snow pants on top of all that gear.
Like in a little spacesuit.
Yeah. Well, those people that in those grown-ups, they looked like, she didn't say she was wearing snow pants, but she looked like she was wearing some pretty heavy-duty leggings. Like today, I've got on a pair of pants and a pair of long johns underneath. Well, I think she probably had about 4 times what I've got on.
It's almost surprising to see their faces exposed. You almost expect like an astronaut helmet, because that's the only thing that's kind of still exposed.
We try to hit it at a 90-degree angle. We just drill a 20 to 25 inch diameter hole. Cows will come and meet their water needs. We're constantly removing the ice.
How long it takes for this water to again completely covered with ice?
In 1 hour.
Cows in this village are always kept in the barns in winter.
Yes, I just thought that was pretty neat, because that's like they leave the cows inside all the time because it's too cold, and then they just make a hole in the ice so that the fresh water can come up. The cows run out, drink their water for the day, go the fuck back inside, and then in an hour, it never
it's
happened.
Completely frozen again.
Yeah.
At first, I thought they were getting ready to do ice fishing.
Right, which I'm sure they do too.
Which we do around here.
Right.
But when a hole is dug and they do ice fishing, usually it's the day. They're out there for the whole day and able to fish out of that hole. They might have to break it open a little tiny bit, but out there, every hour you'd have to be smashing through and all.
Yeah.
But you couldn't stay out. You couldn't stay out all day to ice fish.
Probably not. Yeah, because it's so hard to even imagine it. Because like I said the other day, it was minus 22, and just almost like a stunt. I went for a walk to the grocery store just to experience the cold, and it's like, this is so fucking cold. But to double that, Like I just don't even know. Like even I, with all of my experience in the cold of Canada, I just you can't know what it's really like without being there. It must be in. And how could we even? Because like a freezer is minus 20. It's about that. Like you can't even, if you wanted to experience those conditions, you got to go there. You can't do it.
Constantly be in a freezer. That's what that's like.
Yeah, except even worse. So here's the final bit about the Russian city where they just ask one of these people who lives there, so like, what do you consider cold?
What is the coldest temperature you have ever witnessed?
The coldest temperature is negative 71 Celsius.
What is cold for you?
If I have good clothes, if I have enough clothes, before negative 40 it's not like real winter temperature for me. Negative 41, negative 48, it's like fine. Below negative 48, it's cold. And below negative 52, it's very cold. And every degree feels... The funny thing is like cold weather feels like fire, like burning. Some people didn't have proper clothes and they went to the woods and their car broke down. They couldn't call someone because no phone service. Yeah, and it ended.
What do you think about nature?
Whole lifestyle of Yakut people, of Sakha people, it's taking care of nature, respecting it. Early childhood, me and my family, we used to go to the woods to fish, to hunt. It's just a part of our life. And we always remember that we are not the owners of this land. We are just guests. You shouldn't drink there, have fun there, throw the garbage. Don't disturb, don't destroy. Yakut religion is not something which is written in a book or there is a church. Like there is one center of our religion, but it's not something that like in other religions that we do every day. We should pray. We don't do something like that. But it's in our mind, it's in our lifestyle, and it's all related to nature.
Why don't you migrate to south, where it's warmer? Because living in these temperatures is like torture.
It's a torture for you, but not for us. The first reason is my family. Like my family is here, and for me, the best is to be close to my parents, to my brothers. And secondly, I like the nature here. It's very pure. Like the ecology is very pure, and it's for me and for my like future children, breathing fresh air. It's very important. Third, because of our culture, I want to preserve our language, our traditions, and give them to the next generations.
Yakutsk has summers as well. In July, the average daily temperature is about 67 degrees Fahrenheit.
So I thought that was interesting too, of just like up until like minus 40, it's not really winter. Where like we would say that about, it's minus 8, minus 10, like it's bad, but it's not that bad. But to them, their version of that is minus 40.
That last scene though reminded me of our far north.
Right.
It would be like that in northern Canada, where the Eskimos established there, and they survived there, and they lived in igloos for years, long before the white man ever showed up and started building houses.
Yeah, because obviously all those early shots were all in the city, but yeah, once they show the outskirts, and it really is pretty, and it's one of those things too, where it's like as the world, global warming and shit, but also as the world gets more and more populated, like that's going to become more and more of a good place to be, potentially, like just because everything is so crowded. And
if you establish in your mind that you're going to have 6 months of really deep freeze winter, you prepare for it. You get your housing all set up to accommodate that. You have suitable clothing. Then maybe you have to go back to the way it was before, with sleds and dogs and that sort of thing. I doubt that'll ever go back to that, because now they use snowmobiles and those sort of things in the far north for that. But yeah, that was very reminiscent of our far north, and we probably have temperatures like that.
Yeah, it was it's a nice way to end that video too, with the because obviously all the people trying to live the city life, seems like that's where a lot of the misery comes in, of just you live in your little crappy apartment, you hang your food outside the window to freeze it, and everything's smoggy and miserable and whatever. Whereas if you're at least it seems like living the more rural life where you're more on the outskirts and you have cows and stuff just fits better with that whole environment. That whole thing felt like is a nice way to end it, where it's like, yeah, that's not so bad. Whereas, yeah, the people, they didn't even, I must have seen it in one of his other videos, but it is kind of interesting too in the how he mentioned how the cars all have double paned glass, but all of the buildings have 3 sets of doors. You go into an entryway, and then you go into another entryway, and then you go into the store because
Which is, yeah, preparing. Once you've established that's just life. You're going to live 6 months like that. And in the summertime, it's, well, obviously you're going to have maybe not 6 months of summer, but 3 or 4 months. And they said the average temperature was 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, that is similar to us too, right? It's like people don't expect us to have hot summers, but our summers are brutal. They're so fucking hot. So yeah, because again, they're on the same kind of part of the world as us, more or less. So yeah, that is the weird thing, is your temperatures are so extreme in both ways.
Yeah, but oftentimes those places, if that's like our west and north, winters, because they've got dry, when that winter sets in, it sets in, and it's cold. But then spring comes early, and you have a nice summer. Whereas the difference with us on this East Coast is we have the widest range of temperature change in the world.
Yeah, ours is insane.
20 degrees. Whether it's summer or winter, doesn't matter. A 20-degree change in one day is nothing.
Yeah,
that's why
literally happened yesterday.
That's why you always have to be prepared with your clothing. In the summertime, you never go anywhere for any distance without taking a sweater or a jacket with you. Because one day it could be sweltering hot, half an hour, 2 hours later, like, it's chilly.
Yeah, even just the other day, it was, again, one of our bizarre, suddenly it was warm for no reason days. And, I checked that weather website. It's almost better not to check it because it just gives me ideas that aren't true. But instead of my big winter coat, I was like, it's like, 0 degrees out there. It's warm by our standards, 0 Celsius, freezing. So I still put on layers, but I didn't put on my huge coat. I just put on a normal coat. And then I went outside, and within half an hour, the sun disappeared behind some clouds, and a wind came in, and I was like, fuck. I should have brought all this stuff. I just should have had it. So, yeah, then the other thing I thought, just as the counterpoint to that, so that's the 38 million views video, quite punchy, quite quick.
Yeah, well, as I said, I'd watch that, and I would feel it today here. It's pretty darn nice.
Yeah, it's not so bad. So I guess it did its job. So then this other video that I thought was a neat counterpoint, it's still, it's got a lot of views. It's still got 200,000 views, but that's no 38 million. So this is that guy Tokyo Lens. It's called What Living on Japan's Most Active Volcano is Like. And this one, yeah, it's more laid back. It's slower. So this video is a little less. The first one, it's like almost like the fun magazine style. If look at this, where this one's a little more laid back and a little slower. It's the ash raining from the sky, I guess, is what really got me with this one. If it wasn't for that, it wouldn't seem so weird to live next to an active volcano, because probably it's not going to go off. You're probably okay. But this one's so active that, like, they make little kids, well, you'll see. I just thought it's a neat counterpoint. It's like, all right, super, super cold. And now, like, just people who live in extreme situations, I guess, the two sides of that coin. So we'll hop over to that now. So I split this one into 4 parts, but they're probably a little longer, a little slower.
In the south of Japan lies a volcano. More specifically, Japan's most active volcano. It's tucked into the Bay of Kagoshima, an area many once called the pirate capital of Japan. The volcano is called Sakurajima. It's over 1,100 meters tall and is so active that as of recently, it's been erupting as much as 1,000 times per year. Entire YouTube channels are dedicated to capturing the eruptions, both big and small. These scenes are a fairly regular occurrence, and the winds often carry the ash clear to the mainland. The island is filled with evacuation shelters in the case of eruptions and falling debris. The streets are covered in volcanic ash, and children have to wear helmets on a near daily basis. And this is perhaps the most interesting thing about Sakurajima: the people who actually choose to live on it. You see, Sakurajima has several villages, towns even, filled with people. People once divided by a history of discrimination. People who live on Japan's most active volcano.
So yeah, it's a little start off, but yeah, I thought that was neat because like you see the kid carrying an umbrella, but that's not an umbrella for rain. It's an umbrella for ash. It's neat too. So they're saying like 4,000 people live there. After we talked about Campobello last week, I looked that up, and it's under 900 people live there.
Yeah, it used to be much more. Like when we first moved there many years ago, there were about, they used to say 1,200 people were local residents, and in the summertime with visitors, it would go up to about 2,000.
Right.
But now it's lower, 900. I'm surprised it's as high as 900. I would have thought 750 or so.
Yeah, it was 8 something. Which is interesting too, right? When a census is that accurate. When they say there's like 816 people, that is exactly correct.
The guy makes a comment there at the end of that about people choose to live in areas with heavy snowfall.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? Well, and when he said that, I was thinking of all the people who live on the western coast of the United States and Canada on the St. Andreas Fault there that runs.
Yeah. Earthquakes, droughts.
Yeah, earthquake central. But especially, I mean, and
wildfires. They got a lot of problems.
But they're expecting a major earthquake there. They said every 100 years. Well, 1906 was the big one in San Francisco.
Right.
We're over 100 years. So
I like though with this video that they have like the other Japanese people, like the guy coming through for fishing, that even other Japanese people are like, yeah, that's sure, but 1,000 times a year, that thing is always going off. This is weird.
it is, and it is beautiful. What a beautiful area.
Yeah.
And not overly crowded because
obvious reasons.
Obviously reasons. But people do choose to live in areas that are full of risk.
And obviously a lot of it, with any of these situations, really anyone's situation ever, a lot of it is just because it's where you were born. Most people, that's the end of it. You just stay there until you absolutely can't anymore.
And if you live there and you were expecting something to happen and you have an escape plan of some kind, well...
Yeah. And speaking of, this next part I've labeled, Is It Scary?
The last major eruption in Sakurajima was actually in 1914, and you can see the evidence of it to this day all around the island. There's even a shrine gate that was half buried in volcanic ash. In fact, the eruption was so large that the lava flow connected the island to the mainland. This area is now used as a road. Many say that the lava flow of this particular volcano is so slow that in the 1914 eruption, many residents even had time to tear down their homes. Now, Sakurajima does have monitoring stations and professionals watching it 24/7. But have the daily eruptions desensitized the residents to the potential danger? Most people seem to feel safe, but not everyone shares the same feelings of optimism. And it shows as you wander through the island. Abandoned homes and buildings are everywhere. Over the years, thousands have made the choice to leave.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting where when they're asking if people feel scared, they're like, nah, it's just normal, you just get used to it. But then they follow it up with these crazy things like, but if you see a lava flow, you get stepping, or like that it's not just like little, like there's so many active volcanoes that aren't really active, where this one, they're like, yeah, sometimes you're just driving along and you see the fireworks spew flames and shit out of the mountain, and it's like, damn, dog, like I get that you're not scared of it anymore, but that really isn't normal. That's fucking weird.
You probably do become desensitized, though, to that if you live with it constantly. It's like here, people say, like, the number of sirens and things that go by this building. And you know what? If you work here all the time, you hardly even notice them anymore.
Oh, just because you're on the main road, you mean?
Yeah. And people, oh, there were sirens down at your area. Oh, was there?
Right. Oh, yeah, like that lady saying, like, people call her up, like, hey, I heard about the eruption. Everyone okay? Like, what? Which eruption?
Yeah. Oh, was there an eruption today? So if you live with something enough, yeah, you do become, you know it's there, but it's in the back of your mind, and you don't get all worried and upset by it, wondering what's going on. And
They definitely are in a weird spot, though, whereas the guy was saying, you know, it used to be 20 years ago, there were like an extra 3,000 people on the island. And just yet that there's a major city so close, just a little ferry ride or whatever, that you don't even if you come to visit, you don't actually need to stay on Volcano Island. You can stay, it's like, say Campobello had a volcano. You could stay in Lubeck and come visit for the day. You don't have to stay on the island. So they're in a very weird spot. Like where I was saying how with the Russian place, feels like as the decades go on, that could become a better and better place to be. Like it'll be better to be isolated and to be further north as the world continues to get fucked. I feel like the opposite with this island. This island really doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. So.
But again, let's go to the West Coast with the San Andreas Fault.
Yeah. That's still different though, because again,
that's a major city. That's a major city's all along that coast.
I guess, but it's still a theoretical. I guess this kind of is too. This just feels so different to me because it's always happening. I guess we haven't gotten to it yet. It's probably the next bit, but that they've got to constantly bag up ash and deal with it. And like I wonder too, health-wise, it can't be good
I'm sure
to
that
breathe
must be
in.
affecting their health.
Yeah. So in fact, let's see. Yeah, kids and ash rain is the next bit.
School children all across Japan are typically given hats to wear to school, but here on Sakurajima, kids are required to wear protective helmets to and from their classes. It's all just become part of the usual lifestyle, a lifestyle that some see as normal while others see it as risky or inconvenient. There's one main restaurant on the island which is quite popular for lunch, and one main cafe, but in a week of living there, I didn't see it open even once. And there are only 3 places on the island to really do your grocery shopping. 1 supermarket and 2 convenience stores, a Lawson and a Family Mart. Fishing is so big here that the convenience stores even have an entire section for fishing goods and supplies, including a freezer for bait. But not every day is filled with relaxation and fishing. Every resident is given about 100 bags for collection and disposal of ash each year. The ash is such a big part of life here that everything, including graves, are given shelter. As dryers aren't common in Japan, most people hang their laundry indoors to dry, and dump trucks hauling loads of volcanic ash can be seen everywhere.
So yeah, that's a pain in the dick. You just got to clean up the ash all the time.
Yeah, now that's a weird thing that it's constant.
Yeah, it's not just an occasional. That's where it feels a little different from like the San Andreas Fault or whatever. Is like that's like, oh, someday it's gonna be bad. Where this, it's just all the time.
Continual. And I mean, those were big garbage bags, and each person gets 100 of those to fill in a year. Like, yay, that's a lot of ash.
Yeah, and like when the guy there at the end is just like, see this isn't dirt, it's ash. And you'd think like, it's just kind of accumulated. But he's like, that's from today. I got to go clean this up. I'm almost surprised they don't just get lazy and leave it. But then I guess the whole island would just be covered.
Then there'd be a big mountain of ash.
Yeah. It's neat, too, how that ties into... it's funny that grave sites are such a good way to demonstrate what's weird about a place. How in the Russian city it was that you can't dig into the permafrost. And here it's that you've got to put a roof over everything or else all the graves will get covered in ash.
Yeah. And people have to hang their laundry inside because, of course, they don't have dryers. So they've got their laundry hanging all inside covered because, it would be all ash covered.
Yeah, like it's funny at these 2 sides of this where as I watched the Russian one, as insane as it seems at first, by the end, there's a weird optimism where you're like, yeah, maybe there's things about this. Where I kind of feel the opposite about this one. At first, you're like, a beautiful southern, island in the Pacific Island, just gorgeous. What a nice place. And then as it goes on, you're like, there's plenty of other places even nearby that don't directly have ash falling all day.
Yeah, and it makes you think if you were living in that Russian city and were prepared for that cold, you know that there's going to be a summer that's going to be 67, 70 degrees. That would be lovely. Winter, summer. But this ash business, that goes on all the time. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, definitely
pain
weird.
In the ash.
Pain in the ash, yeah, for sure. So I guess we just got one more little bit.
So I actually committed to staying on the volcano for an entire week, and we're pretty much at the end of the week now. Unfortunately, I only got nice weather for the first day, and Sakurajima has been clouded over every single day since, but it is still visually spectacular, and the people are so warm and welcoming. When I first got here, I was really taken aback by the fact that everyone said, no, it doesn't feel any different living here. There's nothing really that special or dangerous about it. And I was like, well, you live on an active volcano, and not technically active like Mount Fuji, which shows next to no seismic activity or eruptions and has hikers going up on it. This is active as in like hundreds of eruptions per year, smoke constantly billowing out of it, and having the top half of the volcano just locked off. You can't even access that area whatsoever. Now, it feels like this would be a dangerous place to live, but having the chance to be here and spend an entire week here day and night, it doesn't feel dangerous. It feels peaceful. And the last major eruption was over 100 years ago, and if the rumors are to believed, the only deaths from that were actually people who tried to swim across over to Kagoshima and the surrounding areas, and they drowned. Apparently nobody was taken over by lava. Dangerous or not, I will say that the people here are amazing, and I have loved every minute of the week that I've gotten to spend here.
ここが一番いいです。住むとこは。
なんでここが一番いいと思うんですか？
いやもう慣れてくらいですよ。
That kind of sums it up, really, that last guy. That's the best place to live. Oh yeah, why do you say that? Because I'm used to it, because everybody says that, or they try to convince themselves, like wherever they end up in life, it must be the best because this is my lot in life. So, but usually they make up some big reason. Like that guy was just like, because I'm used to it. Like let's not pretend.
I'm not a fan of the cold, so if I had to choose between the two places, I'd take the volcano island.
Yeah, or I think I'd take the cold. So, because I didn't like cold when I was a kid, but I've changed my tune as an adult. I like it when it's cold now.
I don't like cold. I never did. And the thing with
even right now, I took off my coat. I'm in my t-shirt. You're all bundled up.
I'm all bundled up here. The thing with the volcano, yes, there's always the chance that it will erupt. It's obviously spewing a bunch of crap every day, but it hasn't blown its top for 100 years. It's probably due. But you can't live in fear all the time.
Right.
The trouble with that friggin' cold place, if your heat goes off in your house and you can't go outside because if you're out for 30 minutes, you're going to freeze to death. Well, if your heat goes off in your house, you're going to freeze to death.
Yeah.
Now, if you're down on Volcano Island, yes, it's possible a rock will come flying out and hit you on the head. The lava might come running down the mountainside. But you probably have time to get out, to get somewhere else.
I think I would go, I'd go the happy middle. Those 3,000 people that left the island, I'd be one of them. I'm like, yeah, this area is nice. Southern Japan, that's where Fukuoka was when I went to visit Brad. Very nice. I have very fond memories of that. It's called Kyushu, that island of Japan. Great, sure. But not that island.
But now, isn't maybe Fukuoka is not, or whatever you call it. But isn't it in an earthquake zone over there?
The whole fucking country is an earthquake zone.
And there was a major earthquake there in 2008, was it? And then it was the tsunami that followed it up that did a whole lot of people in.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it was up more northerly, but Fukushima was the reactor.
What I'm thinking of.
Yeah, where the typhoon hit the nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything's got their problems, but I just feel like with that place in particular, Kagoshima, it just seems like it's Well, it's different too. I mean, again, if you've got friends and family and your kids and blah, blah, blah. But if it was just me all on my own, it's like, wow, I could literally move 20 miles away and it's just, I don't have to bag up ashes all day.
Yeah,
So that's what
But if there were only the two, if you had to choose between the two places, I'd take Volcano Island.
Yeah, and I mean, it's
Lovely
like,
nature, decent temperature, laid back, peaceful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful to look at. Now, I can't say that Russian city was beautiful to look at, but it was. I mean, lovely white snow all over the place, but damn it, it's snow.
yeah. I don't know. It's weird. I just, my mind just really changed a lot on that. I don't know what happened where, I guess because, again, maybe as a kid, I just was outdoors more and getting hypothermia and stuff. But now as an adult, like I way prefer when it's cold. This winter has been like annoying me because it won't be winter. It keeps melting. And I'm like, where's winter? Give me winter.
Well, see, I love this winter, and I loved last winter. It was the same. It was pretty mild for winter. I can take winter. This kind of weather for winter, I can take that. But living in that place where you step outside and your eyebrows are covered in white. And
you notice, though, with the Kagoshima little documentary he made, where he put a note on screen at the start about this annoying bug that was right in his camera lens. He's like, this damn bug. But then that happened 2 other times with 2 other interviews. There's so many bugs flying around that they're in his camera lens. So, I mean, if you extrapolate from that, there's probably a lot of bugs.
Oh, yeah, he didn't get into that.
And then he threw in, like, it was actually rainy and cloudy most of the week. I mean, everything's got their problems. Really, that's where, man, Corona world is such a goddamn downer, because I was having such a fun time just moving. That was my favorite thing, is like, who cares if things aren't perfect, because in a few months I will just move somewhere else. That was my favorite lifestyle ever. Just slowly circling the globe. Like when I did that, I mean, that last run I did right before COVID was the best, where I went from here to Montreal, through Iceland to Amsterdam, through Russia to Japan, through Taipei to Vancouver, Toronto, and back here. That took a year. It was the best. God damn it. Fucking Corona. Like, it's sad that I feel like that world, it's got to come back someday, but maybe it never will. I just don't know.
It might not.
But hey, maybe I'll just become a traveler again who just constantly gets coronavirus. We'll see. That'll be that test. Is it, how much do I put my money where my mouth is? If I really like it that much, am I willing to get corona every year? I don't know. I guess we'll see. For now, though, just stay put. And
well, that was a very interesting viewing.
Yeah, I'm glad we waited, because I set this up when winter first hit, but it doesn't have the same impact. It's better to watch that on a day like today.
Shades of extremes, though.
Yeah.
One, will the volcano blow its top and kill you, or will you live in Iceville?
Yeah.
And it'll kill you.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely do understand, because I used to just, when I was shooting off my mouth to people, I used to say, like, if I could pick to freeze to death or to be set on fire, I would rather be set on fire, just because I hate the cold so much, just to not give winter the, the satisfaction of killing me. What are these conversations that I'm having when I'm 12 years old about getting set on fire? But yeah, I don't know, just don't feel that way anymore. I find the heat.
Well, if you had to die by either of the extremes, dying by freezing is probably
you wouldn't even notice. You
better,
just
because you just start numb, and it hurts at first. I'm sure it does. And it hurts when you're starting to freeze, but then.
Although being set on fire would be a lot faster, probably.
Yeah, but boy, she'd be friggin' painful too.
I wonder, though, all that stuff. I mean, it's scary conceptually, but I bet. Your nerve endings burn pretty quick when you're on fire, or like drowning. How long could it really take? All this stuff is probably not as bad as people think.
I don't know. I think I'll pass.
I don't know. It's weird too. That's another thing. I'll probably regret it if I die a painful death. But people are always saying how they want to die in their sleep. I'm like, fuck that. You don't even realize that you died. You just never woke up. I want to know that I'm dead. I don't know, but then
I'm going.
I think probably the best thing would be to look up and you see the piano falling, and you just have a split second to go, oh, I'm dead. And then you're instantly dead, and you've just been crushed, and you don't even feel it. That would be my ultimate perfect death, because I want to know. I want to know I'm about to die. I don't want to just disappear in the night. I never understood why people like that idea. I mean, just because they don't want pain, I guess. But hey, the pain will be over soon enough in all these scenarios. Anyway, so there's that episode. And then, we started watching Yuru Camp, and we thought we might toss those on, but won't make that part of the podcast. But I got an episode if you want to take a little break, maybe have a little snack. But if you want,
a little snack, and then we'll watch a Eurocamp, so that we'll see how really realistic it is. Because if you went camping in that Russian city, forget it.
Yeah, that's one thing.
You couldn't possibly.
There is it turns out they're working on a Eurocamp movie. I believe it's coming out this year, but there are only 2 seasons of the show, so they haven't gotten to extreme volcano camping yet. But actually, he didn't get into it yet, or in that video either. I think I watched another video he did about the volcano island where he got into more detail. But yeah, you're not allowed to hike up that mountain. It's all blocked off.
Yeah, and he says that. He says how beautiful it is, and that you can't even get close to it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, because again, like he was saying in that first eruption in 1914, the only people that died were the jerk-offs that tried to swim. And, somebody would, if you let people hike up that mountain, somebody would, and then they'd get lava and they'd die, and it'd be a whole thing. So yeah, just fuck it. Just you don't get to hike up the volcano. Because it might not even be like a local. It would be some jerk-off YouTuber or something who would go hike up just to take the video.
Yeah, because the locals probably wouldn't be bothered.
Yeah.
I mean, they live with that. It's no big deal for them to.
And volcanic islands suck. Like, have you ever watched somebody, like, Fuji looks nice from a distance, but I've watched plenty of vlogs of people who hike up Fuji, and there's nothing nice about it. It is just that volcanic ash, gross rock for 8 fucking hours. What the hell? That's the worst hike I've ever seen in my life, but people do it just to say they did it,
There were scenes after Mount St. Helen, which is I think it's in the state of Washington, when it blew. And it blew around the early part, the 2000 and, I don't know, 2, 4, whatever. And I don't know why anybody would want to hang out there afterwards. It was just, like, here were cars all completely burned out and houses that just completely covered in feet and feet of fine, fine ash.
Right.
That would get under your skin, into your pores. Every time you'd breathe, it would get into your nostrils. Like, I don't know why anybody would want to go and hang out there.
All that stuff, though, I mean, again, talking about the Fukushima nuclear reactor, the guy Chris Broad, the other Japan dude, he did a documentary, one of his more serious things about that place. And they had to bag up the radioactive soil, very similar to the ash, and cart it out. And it was about the few people that are coming back. And one of the guys was just like, it's where I grew up. So as soon as they said we could come back and the radiation level is relatively low, here I am.
Yeah. People have a kinship for their birthplaces.
Yeah.
Even if they're rotten, horrible places to be, you have a kinship. And in that show that we just saw, that was mostly those people said, I was born here.
Yeah, which I guess again is maybe why I found it such an easy thing to be a travel man, is I just don't feel like that at all. I mean, I literally feel no connection to this city. I don't know why I don't, but I just don't. So.
I don't know why you don't either. But most people do feel a kinship to home.
Right.
Unless maybe if they had a really rotten childhood, and I don't think you did.
Yeah, it's just neutral, though. I just feel like whatever, It doesn't feel like a part of me or I'm connected to it. I'm just someplace. Just someplace like any other place to me. But anyway.
But for a lot of humanity, they do like going back home. And what they usually find if they've been away for a while is when they go back home, it's not the same. It's never the same.
Right.
And then that kinship thing is kind of gone.
I mean, I guess I feel that more with like Vancouver, but I think that's because, I didn't move out there till I was 24, but that's where I didn't really grow up so much in the sense of being an adult when I lived here. I just worked at a comic store and I lived with you and whatever. And then I moved to Vancouver and I got an apartment and a job and I had so like when I go back there, I feel a little more, it's not a super strong thing. I didn't go back for like 7 years. But I feel a little more like, yeah, this is the place where I made my fortune or whatever, staked my claim. Where here, I don't know, it's just born here. But I mean, I guess it's just people are wired like that, and clearly not. But they clearly are. It's obviously that's a thing that, sure, why not?
All right, let's shut her off and have a snack.